So sing along with me. Ooh, don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing's gonna be alright. Don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing's gonna be alright.
A heartfelt thank you to Aaron's family for allowing us to host this memorial in his honor. We also extend our gratitude to Aaron families and Aaron for his significant contributions to our church community. Especially, Aaron is recognized as one of our most dedicated community leaders. Aaron's generosity extended to our garden, where he donated his famous pepper and tomato plants. Over the past decade, he dedicated his time to the upkeep of our buildings, including masonry, the bell tower, and heating system replacements. Both Aaron and Lynn actively participated in various community church events, from Earth Day gardening to music concerts. His legacy teaches us how to love our neighbors through generosity and care. Lynn and Nathaniel, please know that we are here for you. Now, I invite Carter Kraft to introduce the program today.
Good morning, everybody. I just want to say on behalf of Lynn and Nathaniel, thank you, everyone who came from far and near to be a part of this celebration, a part of this memorial, a part of this remembrance. And please know and please feel that this is meant to be a celebration as much as a memorial. We'd actually planned this 8 weeks ago as a birthday party. And here we are. It's still a birthday party. There's cake at the end. We even have a birthday cake. And in addition to the cake at the end, there's also a memorial book out front. If you need to leave early, please feel free to share some remarks in that book before you go. There's a seat sharing table right behind Paul, Maria, and Mike from our 600 Garden Block neighbor crew. If you're into plants or seeds, we've had some things donated. We've had some things come over from Aaron and Lynn's place. Feel free to give, feel free to take, because Aaron was all about growth. And I have to give a shout out and thanks to Alessio's, our friends and neighbor around the corner, Park and Six, for all this amazing food and hospitality, but what they've shared with Lynn and Nathaniel and Aaron over the years since they've been open, and all their generosity of that fabulous spread of pastry and pizza and coffee and good stuff in the back. Now, it may seem a bit unusual to host such a gathering for a Jewish guy in a Christian church. As Lynn said earlier in this week, the elephant in the room is the room. Thank you for that. Yeah, that's not plagiarism. I credited my source. But you know, the community church is a gathering place. It's a religious building. It's a house of worship, and it's a welcoming spiritual space. And that's what Aaron said to me. He said it's a spiritual space. And he was grateful for the times he could come in. And as Pastor mentioned, Aaron and Lynn have spent a lot of time in here supporting the various events. Even some of the last few Alessio's lunches were in the rocking chairs at the back. So anybody who wants to enjoy a little rocking chair at the back before you go, please feel free. I should also mention our friends at the United Synagogue of Hoboken host their High Holy Day services for children right here in this space. And in our community of faith here in Hoboken, we are proud to host them, just as we are proud to host and welcome all of you. Now, we've arranged a church seating here intentionally. It's a little bit meeting style. You know, anybody who's ever been to a Quaker meeting house, you know, the people face each other. We look at each other, you know. It's about each other and who's here. In this case, it's also a little bit about who's not here, but it's who's here. And in this meeting style, we got a couple mics. John has one by the microphone, by the piano. I've got one right here. We are hoping and encouraging anyone who wants to share a feeling, a memory, a recollection of Aaron or about Aaron or what his work meant to you. We hope everyone who feels the urge will take that opportunity. So let's start. Let's start by thanking Aaron. Aaron was a hard worker, very similar to another great Jewish guy I know a little bit about. Aaron led by his example. He was pioneering in his efforts to develop alternatives to incarceration. He got to drive Patty Smith from Newark Airport to like the Essex County House of Detention. Probably the best gig anyone could ever get in graduate school. He loved that. He scaled up affordable housing in multiple places in multiple states with the Enterprise Foundation and other organizations. He knew that a healthy, vibrant, living thing needed healthy habitat for themselves and their family unit. He had tremendous board service with the Coalition for a Better Waterfront and Fund for a Better Waterfront. Look forward to hearing from Ron and friends later. He was instrumental in creating not one but 2 homes for Legion Charter School. Great to see the Legion Charter family. Yay! That's the celebratory attitude. Keep it up. He co-founded the Hoboken Community Center and the food pantry. So, literally to the end. So he got a lot of us involved tangentially, and a lot of us look forward to continuing our support in whatever ways necessary. Aaron was a vision keeper. From the earliest stages of the homeless shelter to his recent board service on the Housing Authority Board. And we look forward to hearing and learning from some of the representatives and beneficiaries of these organizations today. Probably one of the main things I love most about Aaron was his humility. So many of the beneficiaries of these organizations, these people, these families, the recipients of their services, the roof over their head, the roof that didn't drip, they will never know the name Aaron Lewit. And unlike many of us, he was totally okay with that. Looking around the room, I think Aaron would want us to see this not just as a celebration or a reflection, but I think he'd want to see it as a call to action. We should all see ourselves as stewards of his values, and we should all find new ways to bring these values to life in what we do and commit today to doing. Today we gather on Garden Street, just down the block and in a place where Aaron brought great life, including the garden right outside on the north edge here. As a life partner to Lynn, a parent to Nathaniel, and his perch on the 3rd floor of the house, those beautiful windows looking out into the rising sun. Even the roof was a platform on which he could devise new ways to help other people in social organizations. We all got to learn from him. I had the privilege to learn last week that in Hebrew, one name for cemetery is Bet Haim, a garden of life. But I would say Aaron's Bet Haim was not just where he was laid to rest last week, but everywhere he worked and everywhere he served. Now it's my honor to invite Lynn, followed by some family members, up here to share a few remarks.
Let's see. So I don't feel so comfortable for change talking. So I'm going to read 4 poems during the course of today. And the first poem is a poem by Mary Oliver. I do need my glasses on. The cake in the back, it was so hard to figure out what to write on the cake. And the middle cake says, a life well lived. And this poem, obviously coming here is to memorialize Aaron, but it also gives us an opportunity, like a call to activism, to reflect on our own lives and what we want our lives to be. So here is a poem called When Death Comes by Mary Oliver. And I used to teach this poem to my students to hopefully say goodbye to them, and they would go off and do wonderful things. So, when death comes, like the hungry bear in autumn, when death comes and takes all the bright coins from his purse to buy me and snaps the purse shut. When death comes, like the measles pox, when death comes like an iceberg between the shoulder blades, I want to step through the door full of curiosity, wondering, what is it going to be like, that cottage of darkness? And therefore, I look upon everything as a brotherhood and a sisterhood, and I look upon time as no more than an idea. And I consider eternity as another possibility. And I think of each life as a flower, as common as a field daisy, and as singular. And each name, a comfortable music in the mouth, tending, as all music does, towards silence. And each body, a lion of courage and something precious to this earth. When it's over, I want to say, all my life, I was a bride married to amazement. I was the bridegroom taking the world into my arms. When it's over, I don't want to wonder if I have made of my life something particular and real. I don't want to find myself sighing and frightened and full of argument. I don't want to end up simply having visited this world. So thank you. That's the first poem. And what's next, Carter? Does anybody want to come up and speak? We're like, no you, no you. And this is Aaron's little sister, Lisa, here from Florida.
My name is Risa, and I'm Aaron's baby sister. And I wanted to give you a little glimpse into what Aaron was like as a brother. You all know him as a friend, a neighbor, a community member. Aaron was older than I by 9 years. That's a big age difference. But instead of sibling rivalry, we had a great friendship. And I grew up feeling cared for and protected. As a kid, I idolized my athletic and handsome brother, as you can see from some of those pictures. And I knew I was loved, even though he mercilessly teased me at times, like picking me up off the ground by the side of my head, or holding me down on the ground and threatening to have spit drip in my face while he did. But when he walked in the door for school breaks from college, I couldn't be more excited, especially the time he brought home a dog. Simpson College and I was said one of them had to go, and Aaron wisely chose the dog. Aaron enjoyed music, and I remember Dion and Bobby Rydell on the record player when I was very young, and is doing the limbo rock in the basement. And I think our mother had to sew quite a few pair of pants that were split down the middle. On my 13th birthday, he took me to Fillmore East for my first rock concert to see Jethro Tull. One day around the same time, I was playing a Creedence Clearwater Revival, you remember them, and the album in the living room, and we broke into a memorable impromptu dance in the living room to Heard It Through the Grapevine for the very long extended play version. He introduced me to the music of Patti Smith on a car ride, and then popped it out of the CD player, wrapped it in a paper towel for me to take home because I liked it so much. And we continued to dance together at family weddings, and most notably the weddings of the Klein boys, our sons. Aaron officiated at the wedding of Jason and Kristen almost 10 years ago, and then Jonathan and Laura in 2016, and then Ricky and Andrew 2 years ago. When Jason and Kristen asked me what we thought of having Aaron officiate, we said it would be a great idea if he gave me some direction, this being his first rodeo. And I think it helped in that regard. Aaron was so nervous that first time that he started the ceremony before the bride even appeared. I thought the wedding planner was going to have a heart attack. Aaron rebounded and did a terrific job. It was important to the boys and their spouses that someone who really knew and loved them would lead them into this most important phase of their lives. And I think he loved doing it. Aaron taught me to think that I could do anything and not be afraid of hard physical work. He thought surprising our vacationing parents with home improvement projects when they returned was a great idea. He showed me how to strip wallpaper, repair nail holes in the plaster, and use a paint roller when I was around 10 years old, when the bedroom I shared with Phyllis got a bit of an Aaron makeover. And I remember once he painted the exterior of the house, and I think there was some yelling about that. I loved talking all things construction with him and seeing his job sites over the years. I even learned a few things. For example, did you know that the wall behind urinals should be tiled from the floor up about 55 inches? That's about the height where drunk guys will place their grimy hands on the wall in front of to keep steady on their feet. Aaron offered this nugget of wisdom when we were discussing the build-out of our son Jason's tap room. And he was right, of course. Once on a job site, he dictated his punch list to me as we went through the apartments. Even though this was low-income housing, he would not tolerate shoddy work and had a discerning eye for crooked cover plates, poorly mitered window trim, drywall that needed to be reskinned. And these were lessons that informed my husband Rick and I through various building projects on our home. He wanted to hear about our dilemmas and our successes and offered suggestions. Even in his hospital bed 2 short weeks ago, as he struggled to FaceTime with Rick and I, he managed to ask how our latest construction project was going. Growing up with Aaron for a brother was at times magical and fun, and it continued into my adulthood. He had an exuberance for life and loved to share it. It's not every day that someone FedExes a box of Hoboken-grown purple Cherokee tomatoes to Florida, but he really wanted to share the experience. Aaron not only talked the talk, but he walked the walk. He shared his knowledge and his compassion with his community, his friends, and his family. Whether it was giving his time and expertise at the food pantry or the charter school, or taking care of our great Uncle Morris. I'm sure his example instructed and inspired not only me, but the many people his life touched. Having Aaron in our lives was indeed something to treasure.
I'm going to fill some dead air while some of you are getting up the gumption or chutzpah or whatever you need to infuse into your bodies. Here comes Cliff. Welcome.
When you read that poem, When Death Comes, I don't know if you remember, but it just so happens that I was at the house when Aaron passed away. It was just fate, I don't know. And there were probably at least a dozen people in this room that should have been there, but I was there. And I don't know if you remember, but you, when at that moment, just after Aaron passed away, you had a kind of spontaneous poetic experience. You remember what you said? Okay. Well, I want to put it on the record because it's interesting. In that moment of shock, we really didn't know quite what to think, how to react to the fact that Aaron was suddenly gone. And you just started to have this kind of vision, this visual story. I'm paraphrasing, but basically you said you felt like Aaron's head should have raised up, and his mouth should have opened up, and a bird should have flown out because you felt that he was still in the room. And you used that visual example to express. I thought it was very beautiful, and it's going to stay with me. I just wanted to share that. And one other thing I wanted to say quickly, and I've said this to Nathaniel privately, I was so impressed with how you navigated that difficult situation. And I hope that when I'm in that spot that Aaron was in, that my son is as loving and diligent as you are.
Hello. I'm Dick Heidler. I see a lot of people that I know and a lot of people that I don't know. A lot of you have known Aaron, I guess, more recently, or part of the Hoboken crowd. I want to take a moment to go back a ways. We met Aaron about 45 years ago, 1978 or thereabouts. And I want to talk to you a little bit. I mean, I assume there are other people who will talk about other things. There's so many of you here, Aaron would have loved it, and there's so much of Aaron to talk about. But let me talk about a time. We met him in 1978. He was the coolest bachelor in the West Village. He knew his way around the city. He knew all the coolest places, the best music spots. He was, as his sister said, good-looking, athletic build. Yes, women appreciated it. There were many. They didn't last as long as you, though. So, anyway, he lived in the coolest apartment you could imagine on 11th Street, overlooking Abingdon Square. In the coolest neighborhood in New York City, the Way West Village. For those of you who have never seen it, I am going to permit myself to enjoy myself describing it to you. So, once upon a time, this building, which actually had an elevator, probably housed spacious, comfortable, semi-luxury apartments before the landlord renovated it and then chopped them up into a bunch more apartments to maximize profit that were entirely too small, but they were in the right place. And to get into Aaron's apartment, you had to walk down a hallway that was at least 15 feet long. And I'm not even sure it was entirely straight. So you entered through something that felt like a tunnel, 3 feet wide, 15 feet long, but because of its previous history as a luxury building, it had 12-foot ceilings. So what did Aaron do? For starts, his 10-speed bicycle was hung from the ceiling. He must have had some, I don't know how he got it up there. I think he had some kind of pulley system. And then there were shelves all over the place where all kinds of interesting stuff was stored. And then when you got out of the tunnel, it opened up onto this big, great room that was everything. There was a tiny little bathroom off to one side, but then there was the big room, which was the kitchen and living room all put together. And there wasn't much in the way of furniture that I remember. I remember the mattress on the floor and cushions. I have a real good memory of the industrial electrical cable spool that he probably picked up on the street somewhere that was cleaned, beautifully sanded, and perfectly varnished. And while there wasn't much in the way of furniture, the stereo was first rate. And you remember the big old speakers that were, 3 feet off the floor, and there was always music. Music was important. And so those of you who know him from Hoboken, you should know that Aaron was always a builder. Anybody who's visited, I think you already mentioned, part of the 3rd floor of the house in Hoboken, and you've seen the bathroom, and it is a masterpiece of molded concrete sculpture, plus the recycled stained glass windows. And anybody who has been up to Longwood Lake, you must have noticed that the way you get up from the 1st floor to the 2nd floor of Aaron's house, where the ping pong table is and other cool stuff, the staircase hangs off the outside of the building. And that was a way of, there was no other place to put a staircase. And that was a way of conserving space. And to know Aaron was to know somebody who combined incredible construction expertise with a creative imagination. He was an exemplar of the very best of vernacular architecture. And I hope some of you will talk about all the wonderful things that he built in Hoboken. I have a memory, a more recent memory of when Aaron was already on kind of, Aaron was weakening, and but we still had to get together, and we went out to lunch, and he picked a spot in Hoboken, a cafe by the waterfront, and he was very proud that he had helped to protect and preserve that waterfront. And then he took me on a little tour of Hoboken. So I've actually seen the food pantry and the housing authority site and a bunch of other things. And in the last months of his life, he was tremendously proud of all that he had built. And I'm talking a lot about the stuff that he built now that he's gone. And I find myself missing him terribly, because I am constantly noticing all the things he either built or helped me build that have touched my life. The cabinets in our cabin at Longwood Lake. Well, it was a recycled piece that came out of his basement, and we put it together and it fits perfectly into the space. And as a matter of fact, Aaron introduced us to Longwood Lake, and that's now a big part of our lives. He also helped me modify building out the interior of our sauna. He modifies the original finished design. And then there's the deck, the dock, the floors. My kids are here. They both have loft beds that we built in our apartment in New York to conserve space. And Aaron was my second set of hands and advisor and consultant, and we built them together. The list goes on. But Aaron touched the lives of everyone in our family, at least in so many ways. When the kids were little, going back those 45 years again, he was often the extra adult that we called upon when we needed an extra adult. And we had a 15th anniversary trip to Mexico where we were separated for our children for the first time ever. And Aaron, who was still a bachelor with absolutely no childcare experience that we were aware of, took the kids for a couple of days, moved into our house, took care of the kids. And we had complete confidence in him. I'm not sure why, but the important point is so did the kids. And he came along on family vacations. We were remembering, Tamar and I, summertime at a lake in Vermont, or a skiing vacation in the Adirondacks where the car broke down. And we got stranded. It could have been worse. We got stranded in Lake Placid. Could have been worse. And it was all good. And then there was so much else. None of us ever bought a car without consulting Aaron. And in many cases, in the used car market, he was the guy who found the car. One for Josh, one for Ariel, one for me. None of us would ever dream of starting a construction or a rehab project without talking it over with Aaron. And the evidence of all that is still very present in our lives. That makes it easier, but not easy enough. I am not even close to being resigned to what I consider his untimely death. He deserved more time. There may be other people here who are more spiritually advanced than I am, who may be reconciled to the movement of life and death, but I am not. It remains my view that his death somehow wasn't right. Somehow it wasn't fair. I would like to offer comfort to Lynn and Nathaniel. I'm not seeking it myself. I'm not likely to give up this attitude anytime soon. But I am grateful for the time we did have and for the time we spent together. I will treasure his memory. With all the things we did and built together, Aaron left his mark on all our lives. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Marty. I was Aaron's cousin. And his mom and my mom weren't just sisters. They were best friends. And Aaron, when I grew up, was like the big brother I never had. He was so cool, as you've already heard. He was that sports star at Fallsburg. He was just, in a lot of ways, bigger than life. He had those older friends up at Lake Packhung that were so cool. When he did go away, he went on a sports scholarship. When you're 10 years old or 12 years old, it's like, wow, that is so cool. And he did. He came back from the frat with a dog, Duff the dog, that became a big part of our lives up during the years. And then when he graduated college, he took a year and he just went around the world. And it was like Afghanistan he was at, before it was Afghanistan as we know today, but through India and all. It was just like the amazing things that he did. And it's true, he had stories about the Fillmore East, and especially the balcony, that was just wonderful. As we kind of moved on in our lives, one thing that we kept in touch over the years, especially as we both moved into retirement, and he was always involved with the most wonderful projects. And in some ways, we love talking about our work in the nonprofit worlds and the charitable work. And I always kind of like to think that Aaron was kind of one of those people in my life that set me into that course, because he just made it right. He was always doing just like amazing things in housing and otherwise. And he wasn't afraid to be a little bit controversial at times. In fact, I think that came out of his growing up in the 60s. He was the first person I think I ever heard disagree with my father about the Vietnam War. And back then it was something, and it was like, but he didn't stand down, and he never did in life. And I think he just helped make me a whole lot better person for what I do, and I'll miss him. And thank you.
Afternoon, all. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Jay Kornstein, one of Nathaniel's best friends. I met Nathaniel in 5th grade at Elysian Charter School, and of course subsequently met Aaron and Lynn. For me, Aaron was a teacher and a mentor. Aaron helped me overcome my fear of dogs by slowly introducing me to dry paint. They're family dog. I think it's normal, okay? Our visits to the country house at Longwood Lake helped grow my appreciation for nature and cooking over an open fire. I'll always remember my summer internship with Aaron. Sorry. Okay. He taught me how to punch list apartments and piss off contractors. During that internship, I would hit jobs with him all throughout the 5 boroughs, and lunch was always the most important part of the day. If we were in Brooklyn, we were scarfing down jerk chicken and roti. The Bronx, we would sit with the wise guys on Arthur Avenue, eating chicken cacciatore and stuffed artichokes from Dominic's, or double parking to sit down for some Dominican food. Harlem was a slice of pizza and a Coke from Patsy's. Queens could have been Greek, Indian, Szechuanese. Staten Island? No one goes to Staten Island. Sorry if someone from Staten Island here. It's kind of true, okay? Anyway, These memories are all just a small snapshot of my time with Aaron. I'm so grateful that I've known Aaron for so many years. I'll always cherish all my memories with him. And I'll miss him dearly. And I hope he's resting peacefully now. Thank you.
So, for those of you who don't know me, my name's Sonny. I'm Nathaniel's oldest friend. Sorry, Jake. I've known Nathaniel, Aaron, and Lynn since I've had a working memory. My earliest memories are with Lynn, Aaron, and Nathaniel. My earliest memories with Aaron were when he taught me how to swim. We went down to the lake. I was terrified of the water. We'd go down, stick our feet in the muck, go about waist deep, and he'd stick his arms out, and I'd tilt over and start flailing my arms and legs, trying to stay afloat. And he was patient with me, and I became unafraid of the water. So I give him credit for teaching me how to swim. Aaron, he had a lot of one-liners. You might hear a few today. I grew up in a Hindu family, and I discovered chicken nuggets at Elysian Charter School in 6th grade. And there was one time that we were at the cabin, and Aaron, I brought turkey for dinner, and I said, Aaron, I don't eat turkey, I don't eat chicken. He said, what are you, picky about your poultry? So that one stuck with me for a while. Aaron was an athlete. He would tell us stories about him pole vaulting and playing football. He always took a liking to me because I think I was tall and wide shoulders. And the last time I saw him at the hospital, he couldn't speak, but when he saw me, he gave me a little flex. And I gave him a little flex back. And I think he was saying to me, stay strong. I know what it's like to lose a father. I lost my father a few years ago, suddenly. And after I'd lost my father, Aaron had taken me aside, and he had told me that he had lost his father when he was a young man, finding his footing in the world. And he was one of the first people to make me feel like I wasn't alone in that plight of losing a father. And he told me that if I ever needed to talk, his door was always open. And I want to tell Nathaniel that, this is not your plight alone, and my door is always open to talk. Thank you.
My name is Ron Hine, and Aaron Lewit's empathy and compassion for those less fortunate shaped both his personal and professional life. It led to his early work with incarcerated individuals, and then to his job providing affordable housing and racial equity through the Enterprise Foundation. His expertise in housing was generously shared with a long list of Hoboken organizations. In 1989, Aaron and Lynn bought 627 Garden Street and moved to Hoboken. In 1992, along came Nathaniel. And for the past 35 years, it has been their home, living in the very center, the very heart of Hoboken. In 1990, the Fund for a Better Waterfront, FBW, was formed, dedicated to the belief that the waterfront belonged to the public and should be available to people from all walks of life. In 1995, Aaron joined FPW's board, and in the beginning served throughout our most productive era. In Hoboken South Waterfront, we were able to get all of the land on the riverside of Sinatra Drive as a public park. We also got Sinatra Park and then Castle Point Park. At the North Waterfront, we knocked heads with a developer by the name of Joe Berry, who was building the shipyard project. And in response, he tried to brand us as waterfront zombies. In 2001, we forged a working relationship with the initial developers of Maxwell Place. Aaron, who was then president of our board of directors, and I spent countless hours up at the Maxwell Place site with our team of experts, negotiating with the developers to come up with an agreement in the end to continue the continuous waterfront park at that site. Stevens Institute had other plans for Maxwell Place and for the Union Dry Dock site, as well as the area just north of Sinatra Park, where they had the surface parking lot. So we fought those plans tooth and nail, for they would have privatized key portions of our proposed waterfront park. Aaron and I were then served with legal papers. We were being sued for defamation by Stevens Institute. This is a classic SLAP suit, which stands for Strategic Litigation Against Public Participation. During this time, Aaron took a trip to North Jersey and happened upon a site where Stevens was dumping the asbestos rock, the asbestos serpentine rock, in the Meadowlands illegally. So that became another part of our battle with them. And for 5 years, we went through depositions, court hearings, and legal wrangling before Stevens, in effect, failed in their attempt to put us out of business. So Aaron stuck with us through thick and thin to the very end and became our longest serving board member. I made frequent trips to 627 Garden Street to talk about FPW business with Aaron, but invariably our conversations would veer off into more interesting subjects. Aaron told me about his Uncle Morris, who went to Mexico in the 1930s to visit Leon Trotsky. He would also share with me the latest local scuttlebutt heard from his next door neighbor, Tommy Galizio, a retired Hoboken police sergeant. I got regular updates on Aaron's green roof project, which was prolific with heirloom vegetables and peppers. But Aaron was modest to a fault. So many things about his past life I actually learned from Lynn. During graduate school, he ran a shelter in New Brunswick for children awaiting placement in foster care. In Santa Fe, while working for the Enterprise Foundation, Aaron also created a men's shelter. Lynn also told me about the time Aaron picked up Patty Smith, that you heard about before. Also about Aaron's football career, which I didn't know about. Aaron never mentioned to me that he was on Bob Villa's show, TV show. And that's something I guess we're going to be treated to later on. So Aaron was a steadfast friend Words cannot fully express the grief that is in our hearts. This was originally intended to be his 76th birthday party, so instead we must celebrate without him. But surely his spirit dwells among us and inspires us to carry on all the causes that he cherished.
Hi, my name is Mark Singleton, and I'm here because Aaron was a dear friend, but I'm also here in my capacity as the Vice President of the Board of the Communities of Faith for Housing, the organization that runs the Hoboken Shelter. And Aaron was a committed volunteer at the Hoboken Shelter since almost its beginning inception. It's just one of the nonprofits that Aaron cared deeply about. And Aaron brought his huge skills in building and construction knowledge to more projects than I can name. But I wanted to just mention two that I think sort of represent Aaron's. One day he called me and he called Jacqueline Cherubini, our executive director, and said, meet us on the corner of 3rd and Washington. And we went up there by McDonald's, actually, by where Mamoon's is now. And he said, look down the street. And sure enough, we saw that the building line of the Hoboken Shelter was bowing. And we found out that we had a very serious roof truss issue. And it began a long journey of architects and engineers, and we had to redo the entire roof structure, and Aaron was invaluable in that project. But the other was, when we renovated our kitchen 10 years ago, Aaron created at home and brought in a pegboard where people could hang their coats, and where aprons could live, and where volunteers could hang their things that day. So from the top of the building to just this small little thing that no one had thought about, which is a place for volunteers to hang their coats, Aaron was involved in every aspect of the Hoboken Shelter, and he'll be remembered and loved. And I can guarantee, we're about to redo our kitchen again, and I can guarantee you that that pegboard will live on in the new kitchen as well. So I know there's lots of organizations that he cared about, but he was invaluable to the life of the Hoboken Shelter, cared about our guests deeply, advocated for justice issues on the board level at every point, advocated for better working pay for our employees, for health insurance and other things like that. So just the kind of man Aaron was. And we're in the middle of our board retreat today, which is why more board members aren't here, and I'm going to run, but I couldn't let the day pass without coming here and just thanking Aaron for his service to the Hoboken Shelter and to all of those less fortunate in Hoboken.
I'm pretty good at public speaking. Good afternoon. My name is Tony Tomarazzo, and I'm Aaron's friend. I'm also part of the leadership team at the Hoboken Community Center and the Food Pantry. And I'm joined today by a number of our members. Would you, if you are with the Hoboken Community Center or the Pantry, would you please stand and just recognize the number of people who are here to thank Aaron for his time. The Hoboken Community Center is the oldest public service agency in Hoboken. We've been in business for 129 years. And while Aaron may not have been on our board quite that long, he was certainly on it for some time. He started serving the Hoboken Community Center when we had just our 96-room SRO that houses low-income men that often we take from Mark Singleton and Jackie Cherubini's shelter and move them through the continuum of homelessness to great successes. When Aaron joined that board, he became an immediate participant. And unlike some board members, you would often go to that building and find Aaron on the roof, crawling around, figuring out where the next leak came from. But Aaron really shined when we decided, just before the COVID crisis, when the SNAP benefits were being cut to many of our needy neighbors, that we needed to do something to feed these 96 men who lived in this shelter. And Aaron had a strong and firm voice on our board that said, we will start a food pantry. We will do that. And with Aaron's help, we started in the fall of 2019 a pantry to serve the 96 men who lived in that pantry, in that shelter. lo and behold, I like to tell people, everyone didn't know about COVID except for the president, but boy did we find out pretty quickly. And Hoboken, being ground zero, needed to do something quickly to address the needs, not just of our neighbors who were suffering with COVID infections, but those who couldn't get out or obtain the food they needed. And Aaron, again, in a very strong voice on our board, said, we will open a pantry, and we will do it in the building that we own, and I will get it in shape. And single-handedly, Aaron coordinated with the County of Hudson and the City of Hoboken to take a building that had been fallow for 10 years, cleaned it up, ran some sort of electric, which none of us know where it comes from, nor do we ask, and provided a place in which today, as his legacy, we serve 3,300 families in Hoboken and northern Hudson County. And if you don't think that that's a direct result of the efforts of Aaron Lewit, you'd be kidding yourself. Aaron was a great guy, but he also had a mischievous, smiling side. And one example that I often think about is one day I was up at the pantry, and we have these double gray doors. If you've ever been on 13th Street, you know them. And they were kind of yucky, they weren't inviting, and we're kind of looking at them. And Aaron pulled me aside and he said, I have a little extra paint at home. I'm going to go paint them for you. And I said, great, thank you. Just another of the million things you do for us, Aaron. I went home, and I'm Aaron's neighbor as well. And I get a phone call from one of our colleagues, and the colleague said, Tony, did you know Aaron's painting the doors? I said, oh yeah, I know. He said he was going to do it. And they said, you said it was okay? I said, of course it's okay. I thought, that's a little weird call to get, isn't it? So next day I went up to the pantry to find out that Aaron had painted them bright purple. That was the paint he allegedly had left over at home. I think we all know that might not necessarily be true. But that was Aaron's way of putting his mark on. This pantry grew enormously. We went from serving 400 people to thousands. And we realized we needed to grow. And we were growing organically. And we were in the pantry one day, and Aaron said, we need shelves. We have to get shelves. I said, I'll find them. I said, okay, great. About 6 hours later, Aaron calls me and he goes, I found them. They're in Trenton. How many do you want? I said, I don't know. How many do we need? He goes, well, here's the drawing. And he comes over to my house and he has the whole drawing ready to outfit the entire pantry as it still stands today. Then he coordinated the purchase of the shelves. He had them delivered. And together on a Saturday morning, Aaron and I sat there while Elvis, the gentleman that Aaron hired to put together the shelves, assembled those shelves. They're still in use today, and they've made a monumental difference. But the thing that really made the difference with Aaron is that he showed up in the middle of COVID, a man of a certain age, and I'm close to that age, so don't worry. He showed up every day on his bike, almost always, and he'd be there, and he'd be packing bags, and he'd be coordinating, and he'd be encouraging people to hang tough and get it done. And that's what Aaron was all about. And I'll tell you, late in Aaron's life, he had some issues that needed to be addressed from a legal perspective. And he asked me for a little advice about what I thought he should do. And he told me the story, and I answered his question, and then I helped him with the case. And then we had an appearance in front of a tribunal. And I was not as calm as one would like. And it's because I was so aggrieved that anybody would have the nerve to question the meaning behind the efforts that Aaron Lewis made. When we walked into that room, those people were 6 feet tall. When we left, Aaron had them in the palm of his hand, apologizing as he left the room. Because Aaron did what was right. He did what was right for himself, but he mostly did what was right for others. And it's because of Aaron that Hoboken really has the fiber that we have today. And so while we can call Aaron our Hoboken hero, we can call him a man that had great impact on so many things. If it's okay with you and Nathaniel, I'm just going to call him my friend. And God bless Aaron, and God bless us all for having been better for him. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Danny Schott, and I live down the block on 7th Street. Last night, I had gone to see Lynn and others read her poetry at the W Hotel here in Hoboken. And as I was walking back, Ricardo said, "You'll say a few words tomorrow, right?" And I was like, okay, for Aaron. Other people have spoken about Aaron's accomplishments, and I'm sure other people will. I respected the hell out of Aaron, and I happily listened to his adventures all the time, fighting for the waterfront, building homes for the homeless, going up against Stephen's parking garage, his battles on the housing authority. And I think Aaron respected me as a teacher. That was my career. After Aaron spent, something he didn't like to talk about, one hellish year, his words, as a public school teacher in Newark. With apologies to State Farm, Aaron was a good neighbor and friend. It was always good to see Aaron on the street because whatever my mood, Aaron would be in a good mood and bring a smile to my face. And there would be the visits to our door with bags of tomatoes in hand, and once or twice a year with tomato plants in hand with instructions on how to care for them. Aaron, as I'm sure other people know, was the go-to guy when I had home improvement questions. I rarely asked directly for help. I would usually broach the subject indirectly in conversation and wait for Aaron to volunteer, which is what happened time and time again. For example, I would say something like, "So Aaron, toilet seats are supposed to come off, right? Mine seems to be a permanent part of our toilet. Is that possible? In the old days, is that how they made them?" And Aaron would say, "Let me have a look. I'll be right over." And sure enough, Aaron would arrive 3 minutes later with a box of tools. 2 hours later, after much cursing and sweating, Aaron has sawed off the rusted bolts holding the toilet seat in place. This is just one of the many examples of me innocently asking Aaron a question about my house, and Aaron getting to work, even though he had other real work to do. If I were to describe Aaron, but I will, I would call him a mensch. And that's a Yiddish word that doesn't even translate that well. Quite literally, it means man or human being. But what it means really is a person of integrity, honor, and kindness. And Aaron was all that and more. Aaron, your memory is a blessing. Thank you.
I so appreciate what everybody has said. It just fills me with memories and a lot about the quality of a life. And I was thinking with Sunny and all of your friends that I met Aaron when he was more your age. I got a job in a federal prison as a dance person, as a person coming in to do, I don't know, choreography, but I wasn't paid by the prison, I was paid by the federal government. So the prison really didn't want me, and my first day, I had to go in the doors and to the right and immediately sign a paper that said that if I was taken hostage, they were not responsible. I then walked in another door with the bars, and I was to wait for Aaron Lewit, who was from the education department, and he was going to show me around. I guess he was about 29. I was about 30, 31. Well, he came over with what he called his big Jew fro. At that point, I think it was the bits. And I was so stupid. The first inmate I saw, I said, "Oh, I love your jumpsuit." You know, I have to say how absolutely naive I was. But we worked together in that prison for several years. And it was really an amazing experience. We were in pretty much the chaos of such a terrible, terrible system. And there was just no safety anywhere, not with the guards, not with the administration. And I just loved how much Aaron was respected. First of all, he could play ball. You know, he was athletic. By the inmates, mostly everybody else did not like either of us, but the inmates really, really appreciated Aaron. And for that reason, because Aaron was my friend and I was his friend, I was protected. So that gave me a chance to do so many absolutely amazing things without the authorities realizing, because Aaron would make it happen. You know, I had people dancing love duets on the roof. I had made films in the prison, but all because we were a force of nature, the two of us together. And it was like something that, unless you've been incarcerated, it's very hard to understand the pressures of being inside a prison. And his humanity, well, it made that all happen. And it was a place where there was such a lack of vision, lack of everything. And he was so appreciated. And I think you would be so proud. It's your age too, right? How old are you? 31. You're even younger than Nathaniel. Yeah, and then, so he became a friend, and I brought him home, and I especially remember this one time when he came for lunch, and my daughter Ariel was sitting in her high chair in her leopard skin onesie, and he totally fell in love with her. And from then on, we just became the closest of friends. And this is also maybe to a younger generation. The kind of friends we were friends who witnessed everything about our lives. We were at all the birthday parties he came to, the graduations he came to, the weddings, Hanukkahs. I mean, we were at your wedding, and I believe we were holding up the chuppah with one. And then my husband and I had a kind of another wedding when our 30th anniversary, and Aaron was holding up the chuppah. And then the funerals, my parents' funeral. I mean, all this witnessing, all this being in each other's lives at these very important moments, it adds up. It adds up to, I mean, just, I want to say friendship, but it's more than that. It's that your life has been seen and witnessed, and it's a beautiful exchange, and Aaron is really, really a part of our family. And then to see him through this last stage was so heartbreaking. I'll be the first one to cry. It was so heartbreaking to see that beautiful athletic spirit and body have to deal with this disease. And, but there I was saying, we'll witness this, we'll go along. And then, I'm a little annoyed that he won't be there for me to do the same thing, but I have to say, that's life.
I'm Jason, Aaron's nephew. Uncle Aaron was, I just want to leave you guys a little message he sent to my daughter, actually. Her name is Emerson, and Emerson was a radio manufacturer. I think they might still make stuff, but he found a family radio, cleaned it up, and then sent it over to us with a note. And in the note, it said, gave the various history of the family, where it came from. I know you still want it, Lynn, but I'm not going to send it back. He ended the note with what I think is kind of just great advice for anybody, and that's why I wanted to share it. It said, "Be safe and dance to the music." He was always very positive, always supported us, and I'll never forget it. So, thank you all for being here.
My name is Pat Magnuson. I worked at the Enterprise Foundation. which was founded, we think, in the mid-'80s, late '80s. I'm here with some of my fellow co-workers, Lydia Tom, Mary Beth Whither, and John Ducey. You can wave, you don't have to stand up. We loved Aaron, not just because for staff meetings he would bring us bread from Antique Bakery, but we did like that, and yes, the tomatoes. But I worked in community programs. Mary Beth was fundraising. John was finance. Lydia was project development and working with the organizations to build the projects. But he would always say, "Hey, what are you doing?" I just got this quote from Barry. "What are you doing? Let's go." And he would say, he's going to a building. He said, "Pat, I'm going to a building in the Bronx. They're about to demo the lobby. Fantastic green marble along the baseboard. Let's go get some." Our boss, Bill Fry, was not able to be here with his wife. He was able to see Lynn and Nathaniel at the burial, but they weren't able to be here today. But Bill did send a bunch of us an email that I would like to share with you to other enterprises. I might be the second person to cry. Let me just. Dear friends, I am sad to share the passing of Aaron Lewit yesterday, February 27th, at his home in Hoboken. Aaron found out that he had ALS along with other health complications over the past year. He returned from the hospital recently to hospice care and to be with his wife, Lynn Shapiro, and son Nathaniel. Aaron had worked with several organizations, telling us all these, talking about you all. Had worked with several organizations, including Enterprise, and was always in the forefront of providing quality, affordable housing and better communities for all residents. At Enterprise, Aaron was the third employee at Enterprise's program in New York City. He was hired as a construction specialist to assist the nonprofit organizations that were developing and rehabilitating housing, many for the first time through programs supported by Enterprise in the city of New York. He helped organizations by monitoring construction and ensuring that the scopes of work got done for the tens of thousands of units of affordable housing. Jim Rouse and Bart Harvey were in awe of Aaron's knowledge. Those are leaders, the founder of Enterprise and one of our CEOs. We're always in awe of Aaron's knowledge that was shared with the nonprofit developers. For the first couple of years, Aaron rode his bicycle from project to project in order to be present for the site inspections. Aaron worked as head of Enterprise New Mexico program for a couple of years as well. Bill told me a story when I told him I was going to be reading this. He said, for example, when he fought for quality with the city's housing department, HPD, and when they were going to put cheap, crappy tubs because it was cheaper, he said, "No, you got to put in Americast, American Standard Americast," and he brought a piece of the tub, and he brought a hammer, and he brought it to HPD, and he said, see, you got to have these in the houses. So all of the HPD buildings have better tubs because of Aaron, among other things. Aaron was a wonderful colleague who always focused on getting the best product for future households who would live in these new homes. He was very early in specifying green-built housing and was respected by the city of New York and developers in ensuring decent, affordable, and lasting housing. Those like myself who worked closely with Aaron knew him as smart, funny, a tremendous resource to the industry, and friend. I will miss him, as will many of his friends and colleagues. Bill Fry, thank you.
That's the Empire State Building, so you know where we are. And we're on the rooftop now on Clinton Street, a tenement building that was abandoned for a couple of decades and is being renovated by Asian Americans for Equality together with the Enterprise Foundation. When they're finished here, there'll be 10 or 11 brand new housing units. Now, we were here actually a month and a half ago. They began demolition then. We've let that much time go by because the demolition was all done by hand, carrying out all the debris in 5-gallon buckets. We're going to get together now with Aaron Lewit, who's the rehab specialist here, and he's going to show us all the progress that's been made. Come on downstairs. Hi, Aaron.
Hi, Bob.
Look out behind you. Pretty exciting.
Sure is.
Pretty exciting place. How are you?
Good.
So what's amazing is that on the roof, you better come this way.
Oh.
On the roof, it looks like you've made so much progress, and down here, you're still working on demolition.
There's a few little areas that are left to clean up. We have this area, you can see that pile in the back that's real compressed.
Yeah.
This stuff is a little burnt out debris that still needs to get taken out of here.
Yeah, and everything goes out in 5-gallon buckets.
Everything, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of 5-gallon buckets.
But you've got much of the work throughout already accomplished in terms of this staircase, which is all steel. You've got it done.
The staircase is all set on steel beams. That's running right up on the roof. That helps the workers, the material move up and down a lot more easily.
And this, of course, gets poured in with concrete on each step, right?
Yeah, in fact, what we're going to use is a dark colored concrete, so it doesn't need painting, it doesn't need any maintenance in the future.
Or any other finishes on top?
Might get polyurethane.
That's interesting, great. And then you've got all your electrical rough in place.
Electrical rough is all in place, and as you recall last time, this building was full of debris. Everything's come out. There's a point where you can look right through to the clear blue skies.
Right.
Those
look like full-dimensional lumber that you've got up there. What size are the joists?
These are 3 by 12s. The actual dimension is 2.5 by 11.5.
Yeah.
They're spanning 25 feet. It's a little larger than I think you generally see in residential construction.
But that's a big span, yeah.
That's a good size span.
Yeah. Can we take a look up at the second floor?
Sure can.
Okay, so we're on the second of 5 floors here.
That's correct.
And in the back, what do you have over there?
We'll have a 2-bedroom in the back, and up in the front portion, we have 2 studios.
Okay, so we're entering one studio apartment here.
Here we are going through our steel buck that was put in today for our front door.
And this is a bathroom?
This will be a bathroom.
Yeah, about 5 by 8.
Just about.
Just about.
Correct.
And then this is the kitchen.
And here we are in the kitchen, correct.
Now, I noticed that you've got both wooden studs and metal studs in use here. Why both materials?
Okay, the purpose of the wood is to stiffen up the structure of the building. These 3 by 12 beams that we're using, they're certainly strong enough to carry the building and the load of the building.
It's a 25-foot span.
It's a 25-foot span. But when you walk across the floor, you might have some vibration. Your dishes will rattle, and you'll complain about the construction. So they put this wood in. It goes from the bottom of the beam to the floor. You'll see a double plate above. And it just locks the building together real nicely.
And the thinking is that a wooden partition absorbs that load
better. It has a lot of density there.
Better than the metal, yeah. But the metal's nice. I notice you've also got cast iron.
The New York City building code still requires cast iron. It's not used throughout the country anymore, I believe. Here we see it all the time. It'll last 100 years, just as we hope this building will last another 100 years.
So it's a lot more expensive to work with a cast iron, but you're hoping you're building here for a century, right?
That's correct.
Now, the electricians like the metal studs, don't they?
It's real easy to weave your wires right through the cutouts. You don't have any drilling to do. The metal studs, of course, they just snap right in place. You put a little screw on the bottom, on the top.
Why do you have to have BX, or the armored cable, here?
Well, it's another one of these possibly antiquated New York City building codes. New York City has the toughest building codes in the country. I'm sure it's justifiable on a number of different levels.
You never have to worry about somebody nailing through the cable or anything like that.
Actually, a screw will go into the cable, so you have to protect your screws. But the other thing is, somebody told me it's rodent-proof. We won't have to worry about our rats chewing through our cable.
Rats in New York? Yeah. Now tell me about this situation here where you've got the window. Because essentially we're looking at a tenement, and in a tenement you've got these air shafts, right?
That's correct, to allow air and light in to the inside rooms. And of course you can reach right across and say good morning to your neighbor if you chose to.
Well, it makes a lot of sense. So the kitchen is maybe 10 feet?
Yeah, we're in the kitchen. It's about 10 feet long. The hallway will be passing through here, so it's smaller than it looks now.
And you get one closet.
Actually, it's 2 double closets. You have one, and one behind you over here will be a closet.
Yeah. And then this front room, which is probably about 20?
This is 12 by 20. It's used both as a living room
and
as a sleeping area.
Yeah. Now, what will this rent for?
Well, as you know, this is a low-income building. This studio would be about $325 a month. It'll be rented to a single person. Most likely the single person is going to be an elderly person. That's why these studios are on the lower floors.
Yes.
Above we'll have the 2-bedroom units.
So you'd never have a couple living in a studio like this?
No, because the chances are they'll have a kid, then they're ready to move out. We're trying to get people situated in long-term housing.
In a stable situation, right. Geez, you got a pile of nice brick here, Aaron.
These are going up on the parapet. The cornice, we had a decorative cornice that came down, so we're going to rebuild it with a decorative face brick.
So although you've got all your rough work done in here, there's still a good deal of work to do on the exterior, huh?
They have you can see the brownstones deteriorated, some of the bricks are down, so they have a little bit of cleaning up out here to do.
Okay, what do you have in store for us next time we come to visit?
Okay, they're ready to start sheetrocking probably in 2 or 3 weeks. They have some things to do before they start. They have fire stopping, insulation.
But next time we come back, we'll be looking at finish work and drywall.
The sheetrock will be up, the finished carpentry, the doors.
Yeah,
and
exciting.
You'll see an exciting building.
Thanks for the tour. Yeah, of course, you got a little nice masonry restoration to do out here, don't you?
A nice little detail that you're looking at there.
Good. Well, we'll be back after some messages.
The first thing I want to do is thank you, Lynn, for so brilliantly deciding to have a birthday party and turning it into this. This is just amazing. So thank you for that. In celebrating the life of Aaron Lewit, I remember the remarkable individual whose presence illuminated the lives of everyone fortunate enough to know him. Aaron was not merely a friend, but a beacon of warmth and kindness, embodying the essence of friendship. As a tomato grower, Aaron's passion for nurturing life extended beyond human relationships to the soil itself. His dedication to cultivating brilliant, nourishing tomatoes mirrored his commitment to nurturing the bonds of friendship among those around him. Aaron's character was defined by a rare combination of qualities that made him truly exceptional. His unwavering trustworthiness and integrity in all dealings earned him the respect and admiration of everyone he encountered. Whether in matters of business or in friendship, Aaron's word was his bond, and his loyalty knew no bounds. Those who had the privilege of knowing Aaron, which is all of you, understood that his honesty, while sometimes brutally so, always came from a place of genuine compassion. He possessed the rare gift of speaking the truth with kindness, offering guidance and support, even in the most challenging of times. Aaron was more than a friend. He was a pillar of strength and a source of inspiration to all who knew him. His legacy lives on in the hearts and memories of all that he touched, reminding us to cherish every moment and to cultivate the bonds of friendship, the same care and dedication that he exemplified throughout his life. We love you, Aaron.
My name is Barbara Reyes. I am the chairwoman of the Hoboken Housing Authority Board of Commissioners. I have Vice Chair Kasaitzman here. And I also want to give my regards on behalf of our director, who unfortunately was not feeling well and could not make it today. I was placed back on the board. Let me just start by saying, not only am I the chairwoman, I'm also a resident of the Hoboken Housing Authority. I met Aaron 3 years ago when he was placed back on the board. When I was placed back on the board. He welcomed me with open hands, never looked down on me, has helped me through till today. I'm honored to have gotten to know me. I just want to say a little story. So, where I come from, when you're not from the community, everybody thinks that you're against them, right? So, before I was put on the board, I was always told, be careful. Some of the people on the board are not for us. They don't want to see us do better. They want to take our housing away. So you go in with this thought that everyone that's not from there is not a good person. And when I went back on the board and I got to know Adam for the person that he was and Erica, it's the first from the truth. I our redevelopment that was just approved by the city council a few months ago. So, this is just one of the things that I witnessed for my life. I grew close to him. I took care of my parents for many years. I was their caretaker. And when I found out that Aaron was ill, which was not very long ago, Eric and I immediately just became so close to him and making sure that he was good at the meetings and that whatever meeting we went to, he was okay with, right? And that he was always comfortable. So it's been an honor to get to know Aaron. And I just want to share some of the things that the director actually texted that he wanted you guys to know. He just wanted to say how Aaron was an instant. He had such an instinct for helping others. He would ask all the time, what can I do? How can I help you down at the HHA? I know that we had some events and Aaron was always the first one there. Always making sure everyone was okay and everybody had what they needed. And he did. He made sure that during the renovations, we were using quality products that would last. He would inspect staff and contractor work to assure that the things were done correctly. He studied and learned how things work at the HHA and with the HUD, and would always suggest what would make things better. He also sent me an anecdote which I didn't know about. He said once there was a contractor that was renovating some apartments and had some sinks delivered that were too shallow. Aaron caught the mistake, and he had the entire shipment of sinks sent back to be replaced with deeper sinks. So this is to show you that although he wasn't from my community, he cared about the people down there. And for that, I just want to say that I, as a resident, appreciate him. I appreciate you guys. I'm so sorry, but you should be so.
I met Aaron probably maybe 10 to 15 years ago through all the nonprofits that I belong together. And the most amazing thing about Aaron is I was able to learn so much from him because we both do so much work in the community, and it was never enough. I was like, oh, okay. And he was just always, what's the next project? He would call me. What do you need me to do? I'm home today. I need a project. Who can I help? I need more. Okay, so we gave him more and more projects. And it was always with kindness and love. And even in his last days, his baby pet project is the development from housing. And we will make sure in his honor that it will continue. Thank you so much.
I would do this without crying. Some words to honor Aaron. There's so many people talking about how incredible he was, and I couldn't agree more. Incredible man. He is kind of my first memories are a lot of them with Aaron. As my parents said, my mom knew that when she was pregnant with me in the prisons. But I wanted to share this image that I have of him in his moments kind of away from the world, because I think the cabin was that place for him. And when I think of him, like whenever he'd hear commotion, our cabin is across from his, he would appear, kind of on the, he's on a peninsula, kind of on the precipice. He'd be like, Tamar? Aaron? Aaron? It's wonderful back and forth. And when I think of him like his silhouette on that. And then, sure enough,
this like silent canoe or kayak just coming around the bend because he's coming over for lunch or kind of anything. And, you know, when I would see him up at the lake, you know, riding around in his boat, you could see such a peace in him. And I find Aaron extremely inspiring because he's someone who showed me that you can look out and you can look in, and that you really need that balance in life, and that you can be a fighter, but you can also be generous and kind, and actually they're not the opposite, that like you can come at many things that the world needs fixing with without being full of anger all the time. You know, when I look back on Aaron, I think he really taught me what chosen family is and how important that is. And I think he gave that to the world in a lot of ways. I'm very grateful, especially I got to receive that from him. I feel extremely lucky. You know, my dad had mentioned when we got stuck at Lake Placid, and like you're a kid stuck at a tiny motel for 3 days, and he just kept feeding me coins for this pinball machine. I don't even know how he kept me days of coins, you know. I think that he had a really amazing ability to see what people needed or what might bring joy. And he was so happy to give it. It's so unusual. And give it without a lot of pomp and circumstance. You almost didn't notice he was doing it. I mean, as I'm listening to everything he did, I'm like, how did he always say yes to me? Oh, yeah, sure, I'll be there. I want to get a new car. Oh, can you know? And I think he could tell at least me something without shame. Like, I was looking at this apartment, and he was like, well, I got to come by and see it. You can't just move in there. Okay, all right. And, you know, he came by, and without making me feel bad, he was like, you know, there's a lot of garbage bags on this roof. Do you know why there'd be that? And I was like, no. He's like, because they have leaks. They have leaks throughout this building. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And he was like, and you know, I don't really think you should move in here, because if you just sort of look at this building, there's a crack at the back wall. and he said it without making me like feel like a dummy, you know. I was like, let's keep looking. Yeah, he was so fun, so fun. Like, I remember I turned 21, and it was my birthday party at the lake, and my parents weren't there, and he heard the commotion, and sure enough, then there's the boat, and you come over, and what I think is remarkable about that was that at 21, with all my friends, I was like, yes, Aaron's here. And I think you can hear how special he was, that he met the younger generation with a lot of respect, and then got that back. I think he was really important to many of us growing up who were lucky enough to grow up with him. And I will miss him dearly. What an incredible human being.
Envy those people who talk extemporaneously. I never could do that very well. So I prepared notes. My name is Leslie LeKine, and before I forget, I just wanted to acknowledge seeing cousin Marty, who I haven't seen since he was 10. I was one of the cooler, older friends of Aaron's at Lake Patcon. Except we weren't really that cool, but we were older, and we quite seemed and meeting finally Dick and Tara, who I've heard your names for like all these years. So I don't know if I said, my name is Leslie LeKine. In 1962, I was somewhat introverted and diffident young man. Aaron was a year behind me in high school. I didn't know him that well, but he told me I should come with him to some United Synagogue youth dances. He was very motivated because there were girls there. And it occurred to me, I guess I was his wingman before I knew that. Being who I was, that sounded like a terrible idea, but he was persuasive and I was flattered at the overture of friendship. And so we went to a bunch of these dances. It was pretty awkward for me, but that forced socialization was definitely a good thing for my development. At a couple of these dances, I met a guy named Morty. More about him later. There was one time at one of these dances, there was a limbo contest. The limbo for youngsters was kind of a dance where you bent over backwards and you had to get under this pole that they would lower every time people would go around, they would lower it some more, and he won. And if Phyllis or Lisa can remember seeing a Ray Charles album in your house, he won that album at that contest. We didn't know who Ray Charles was, but it seemed cool. Anyway, as was alluded, Aaron was charming. He had an athletic build. He had a great head of curly hair, and the girls did love him, as Dick hinted to earlier. And so Aaron and I became friends. We were on the soccer team one season, the cross-country team another season. At cross-country, I got used to seeing the back of his shirt. As I said, his legs having been strengthened from years. He delivered meat for the local butcher, and he had this rickety one-speed bike that he'd ride around Vailsburg. And so his legs are really, really strong. Some of you mentioned that he played football and pole vaulted, but he actually won. He was actually set the city record for pole vault, which stood for many years, quite a while. Anyway, we stayed in touch with college. We hung out on summer and winter breaks. One summer we took a road trip to Montreal to see the World's Fair. After college, I moved to the city, and the following year, when Aaron graduated, we found a place on 100th Street between West End and Riverside. I had the first floor apartment, and Aaron was upstairs, and he built a loft for me too. a little bed loft, so he had some practice on before that takes place. Interesting, when we moved to New York, around the corner was the same guy, Morty. And we kind of had met each other at the USY dances, so we became friendly. And more about him later. So we had some fun, some of it in altered states of consciousness. We made plans to see the world. So we were going to go see we were going to go to Europe like everybody else in my age generation. We were going to save up, and in the fall we were going to go to Europe, and we were going to hitchhike across Europe and see what happened. But that spring, Aaron was banging on my door. Leslie, put your pants on. 3 girls are moving in next door, and maybe they need help moving their stuff in their car. So I put my pants on. We helped these 3 very nice young women get moved in, and one of them was destined to become my ex-wife. my dear departed Elizabeth was one of the most extraordinary people I ever met. And she seemed to want to hang out with me, and that was crazy. Who was I to say no? So we hung out until fall, when Aaron and I left for England. And we traveled south through France, and then Spain, then Morocco. So much hash, it was really like heaven. We were roughly headed towards Palermo because a friend of ours' parents lived there. And all this time, Liz and I were corresponding passionately through Western Union. She offered to meet me during her winter break, and so I agreed to meet her in Portugal. And I told Aaron that I would meet him in Palermo and Liz flew back to New York. Well, there's a little bit of a longer story, but I ended up getting on Liz's flight back to New York, leaving Aaron overseas. And I really felt bad about that for many years, but since Liz and I got married and had 2 wonderful children, I felt a little bit justified in that. Liz and I moved to Philadelphia so I could go to dental school. We never had a vision for where I was going to go when I graduated, so when the summer between junior and senior year came, a dental school of mine, a friend of mine named Joe, asked us to drive across country with him and his wife so we could see his folks in Colorado And we said yes. Colorado seemed so glamorous. It had mountains and John Denver and Judy Collins. And I prepared to find my destiny there. And before I left, I found out Morty, the same guy from USY in New York, had moved to Santa Fe, only a few hours south of Joe's folks. So we borrowed Joe's car, we drove down to see why Morty and another friend of mine from college moved to a town I'd barely heard of at the time. Well, I got there, I fell in love with Santa Fe immediately, and Morty connected me to a job possibility doing dentistry at a clinic for an underserved population. I got the job, and when I graduated, we moved there. And I was so happy when Aaron somehow got you enterprise people to send to Santa Fe for a couple of years. Like, yeah, all right, finally. And so Lynn and Aaron moved out there for a couple of years. I was really sad, but after 2 years, though they loved Santa Fe, they decided to move back. But we kept our friendship alive, each of us visiting the other periodically and traveling a bit. He joined me for the big climate march in New York in 2014. We went to Thailand to visit Nathaniel, and when he drove to Portland to see Nathaniel, I went with him as far as Moab. In 2018, I moved into a new house in Santa Fe, and Aaron was eager to see it, of course. He wanted to make sure that I made the right decision. But we couldn't get it together before COVID, so it wasn't until Aaron's diagnosis that he and Lynn and Nathaniel finally were able to get out, and this past August. And it was really sweet and it was really sad. But Aaron was really so happy to be there after so many years. And Nathaniel took us to some great restaurants that I'd never even heard of in Santa Fe. It's funny, I was going to say this at the beginning. I think we should all have memorials for our friends and relatives before they die. I was reading Ron Hines' little write-up about Aaron. I was like, yeah, wow, yeah, I was like the oldest friend. We were like, yeah, he did that, he did that. But I think about, the people we come in contact with in our lives, and the impact that they have or they don't have. And I can say for me, Aaron's friendship was one of the most consequential. If it wasn't for him, I thought I met Liz, not to become a dentist, not to met Morty, who moved my way to being a Santa Fean. My life would have been so different. And I'm grateful for his friendship and the positive and profound impact he had on my life. And I'm just gratified to witness all the effect that he's had on so many people, and the love you all share for him, and the effect that you have in Hoboken as well. And thank you all for being here.
I knew of Aaron as a volunteer in the community for many years, but didn't really get to know him until he was put forth as a future commissioner on the Hoboken Housing Authority. And it's always good to reach out to people when they're being put into what can be a contentious role in our community. And Barbara Reyes, the chair of the Housing Authority, mentioned that there have been things said about people outside the Housing Authority. There's a certain distrust, and there have been much divisiveness centered around the rebuilding of the campus over the years. There have been protests, there have been marches, takeover of City Hall, difficult issues. And when I reached out to Aaron to get to know him personally, I learned about his experience as a builder and his interest in building and how he was going to be interested in doing this. And he seemed like a great person who was raising his hand to take on this difficult task to a 5-year appointment as a commissioner. A few years later, Ron Hine made a mention of Joe Barry making accusations of him and Ron in fights over the waterfront. There were similar pointed claims made by similar people about the fact that Aaron was a commissioner on the Housing Authority as well as on the Hoboken Community Center, which you heard about his role in creating a food pantry, and how this is a potential conflict of interest, and how difficult this was and how inappropriate it could be for one man to serve in both roles on both boards. And there were vouchers that were being thrown around worth a lot of money, and this guy is in a position to deal with both of them. And they were raised in a very serious way. And they were raised not just to me as a commissioner, as a council person, people raising this and how potentially unethical and difficult and wrong it was, but there was also heated meeting at the city council where there were pointed attacks made at Aaron and his character, and it was not what any volunteer would sign up for. When you sign up to serve, you do it because it's thankless, it's time consuming, it's time away from your family, it's because of your passion for service. And as you've heard today, no one had a bigger heart or bigger passion for service than Aaron Lewit. There was actually a vote, I remember, I know some of the council people are here today, where I think there was one member of the city council who actually wanted to remove him on the spot. I don't know which was voted against. I voted against that, and so did the other council people who were here. But the next day, I was a little concerned, and I called Aaron. I wanted to check in. How are you doing? Because as council people and elected officials, we sign up for people to say nasty things about us, and we get that. But Aaron hadn't done that. He seemed like a soft-spoken person who might have been affected by all these nasty things that are being said in a public meeting that was being broadcast. And he told me in a very calm way, very unruffled, very unconcerned. No, he hadn't watched the meeting, and I suggested he not. And I have no doubt he never did. But what I heard in Aaron's voice and his reaction was someone who had lived a life, who knew who he was, who had a strong sense of self. When some people say things in the public space about you in a way that's mean and nasty, it affects a lot of people in a lot of ways, but if you know who you are, it doesn't matter. And that was Aaron. He knew who he was. It did not matter. And I just want to share one last memory of Aaron. When he was so tragically struck with ALS at the end of his life, very few people actually volunteer to spend any time, let alone on boards, sitting on an uncomfortable wooden bench in a Hoboken City Council meeting. Very few people choose to spend their free time there. We had 2 votes with respect to a $750 million renovation of the entire campus, which is going to change the lives of thousands of residents of the Hoboken Housing Authority for generations. Aaron came to those meetings, and even though he could not walk normally or speak normally or move normally, he exuded pride and joy and happiness that radiated to all of the people in that room who felt his pride in the accomplishment that we unanimously approved that night. So I just want to thank Aaron for everything he's done for our community and for who he is, and thank you for sharing with us. Thank you.
I'm not going to read 2 poems because it's gone on. But I have one little thing a poem of mine that is very short, and I think it talks about faith. Well, I read this poem when my mother was dying. I didn't realize that it was really probably a poem about death. I thought it was a poem about my caterpillars that Aaron found on the roof in the dill and brought in, and then I started to raise these black swallowtail caterpillars that turned into butterflies. So it's a little short poem, but it also brings me to the last line, is sort of what he's left behind. It's called When Are We So Open to Possibility? And it was a reference to the Rilke poems that I read at the funeral that I'm not going to read today. When are we so open to possibility? Caterpillars, tiny astronauts, harness themselves to fate, wriggle free from earthly suits to enter an orbital sleep, wherein days and months pass and bodies melt away. When their cocoons darken, capsule doors will soon pop open, and out will come a crumpled, spindly-legged creature, newly awakened flight. Left behind, within the still tethered empty pupa, a tiny drop of Milky Way. And, you know, what he's left behind is sort of the community. I have two things I want to say, and this one is hard to say. I have not enjoyed Hoboken for a very long time. And part of it had to do with my experience with the nonprofit that I worked very closely with that just simply dismissed me. And I fell out of the community that was the most important community to me that I dedicated my years to. And so Aaron would go places and I would think, oh, I don't really want to go, because I would run into somebody and everything would trigger kind of anger, and I can't even express. But the final gift that Aaron gave me is all of the people who are here, all of the community groups. Everyone has been so wonderful that I have remembered what I loved about Hoboken and the community. And I'm not sure, even though many people say, you're going to move to New York, right? And I would love to move to New York, but I also really feel like I want to live in the house that Aaron built, with all of its wacky doors and sliding things and everything that you have to explain to people, including the stairs to the roof that were actually shelves for him to put his underwear and socks in, but they open up into the stairway to the roof. So I wanted to thank everyone for being here, because it has been so incredibly meaningful to me to have the community again. And then the very last thing I wanted to say is that we were talking, people have asked where they could donate money in Aaron's name, and we were trying to think what would be useful, who needs the money, should it go? And I came up with this idea, but I'm pretty sure that it was Aaron channeling me, because it's a really good idea, and I can't believe it that I said it. That we'd like to set up a fund through Housing for Hoboken. It'll be a dedicated fund, Aaron Lewit Fund, which we're going to call the Welcome Home, I think, Fund, to help people when they move from the housing now and move into their new housing, to help with the moves. And maybe a box of oranges or something, or salt and bread, what you do. And so there'll be opportunities for people to contribute if they want, because so many people asked. And it just was such a great idea, because it's such a small little detail, like the pegboard that Mark Singleton was talking about. It's a real practical kind of thing. And Aaron, and I think I started to call Aaron incessantly, Nathaniel and I will sort of oversee it and make sure that that it does wonderful things for the people who wouldn't expect to have a moving company help them move or something like that. So I'm going to close there. I know Nathaniel has some remarks, and John, you wanted to play something too, correct?
So Aaron was a great friend to myself and my family. I was a beneficiary of his tomatoes. He built stuff for me. We had a lot of fun with him. If I could draw a face expressing dignity and grace, whose eyes reveal the heart that's true, the model would be you. If I could take a rock and carve a man out of that block. Fashion, strength, and courage only known to few. The model would be you. If I could write, I'd write the story of a life well lived, a man well loved, and all those things behind the scenes you quietly would do. If I could show my son a man who treated everyone with kindness and consistency, softly speaking gentleman, possessing real humility, to touch so many lives must be the best that we can do. I don't write or sculpt or paint, and your qualities I can't imitate, but if I could, the model would be you. Oh, if I could, the model would be you.
Thank you all for coming. Just kind of going to wing it a little bit. I didn't really prepare a speech or anything. But just hearing all your stories about my dad, it is amazing to know kind of how many lives he was in. Yeah, there's just a lot of really good stories, a lot of good memories. Yeah, I've been trying to remember like our first memories that we've had. We can kind of think us back, it's kind of as far back to New Mexico. Where I remember we went on a camping trip, and we were like camping out in the middle of the desert, and like crazy flood came in, and we basically wound up sleeping in the car that night. But it was kind of like the first memory, I guess, like him like kind of just like protecting kind of the family and being there for me and all that. But he just, you know, he was like the funnest guy. He was super fun, genuine in everything he did. He was trustworthy, man of his word. And I got some big shoes to step into to kind of continue his legacy. And sometimes you kind of forget about that, and it's been amazing to be kind of reminded by, you know, the man that he was. So yeah, this summer, I think I'm gonna start growing tomatoes myself. Probably won't be as good as his, but trying to, you know, kind of follow with that. Yeah. One other thing I kind of just like, he was always there for me and my friends. He knew how much that mattered to me, and therefore it mattered to him. And I think that's anything that mattered to somebody, he always wanted to be involved with, because he knew that he would do a good job at it. But it's just, I don't know, kind of interesting, like looking at his car was parked right out in front of the church. But he was always into cars, from what I heard, you know, his younger days. And somehow he wound up getting, like when me and my friends would go to the lake, he wound up buying these like horrible looking minivans. And that's what he wound up driving. But I think that was just this kind of thing I thought about today. I was like, that's, you know, who he was. He ain't like, I'm sure he hated those minivans, but he just knew that was the right thing to do. And everything he did was the right thing, with all his work. Yeah, everything was pretty much the right thing. Yeah. I'm gonna miss him a lot. Still doesn't seem real to me at all. This whole thing happened pretty quickly. But yeah, just want to thank you all for coming and kind of helping me, you know, remember all the places that he's been, all the lives he's touched, and all that. So, thank you.
So Aaron was a big Bob Marley fan, and we thought it would be kind of a cool idea. We all ended the whatever this is, memorial, by singing a couple Bob Marley tunes that we can all sing along to. So we're going to do Three Little Birds, and then we'll just metallify that into One Love. And Carter's passing out lyrics you probably don't really need. So sing along with me. Ooh, don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing's gonna be alright. Don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing's gonna be alright.
I knew this place would be packed. This is just the tip of the iceberg of the people whose lives he touched. And he did it all in his Aaron way. It almost looked like he hadn't put thought into it, it just happened. But no, he puts thought into everything. Everything he did was done the way it was supposed to be done. He was an expert in so many things without ever bragging about being an expert. He's someone you went to for advice. He was someone, when you saw him on the street, and I'm not just making this up because we're all here, when your day was better because you saw him. Just the smile, hi, and you talked to him, and then the way he would say goodbye, you felt good. And whatever that warm feeling was, or why it was, it stayed with you till the end of the day.
My mother used to always say, that Aaron, I'm glad he's your friend. He's such a good boy. As opposed to all the other kids who were actually turned out to be not so bad. But Aaron was like, really, she really thought he was, like I think Ron or someone said he was a mensch. You know, he was really, even then, he was just a good person. He was always just a good, almost like a pure, just, you know, it's interesting how so many people said how he was always level and good-natured and pleased with himself and pleased with, I mean, I wasn't.
Aaron always came through for us in his Aaron way.
One heart, let's get together